The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass 5 College Credit Union, dedicated to creating access to financial well-being for local people, businesses, and communities. Insured by NCUA, umass5.coop. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass Amherst School of Public Policy, offering in-person and online graduate programs in public policy and data analytics. Admissions now open at umass.edu/SPP.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. Later in the show, we'll hear about one of the coolest spots in Western Mass that is an intergenerational extravaganza inside and out, Hütke's at the Nook in Westfield.
And word nerd Emily Brewster explains how encyclopedias protected their entries with a term we'd never heard before.
But first, we're now in week 6 of the government shutdown with wavering hope that an end is in sight.
Which has big repercussions even for us here in Western Mass, especially in regard to the distribution of SNAP funds.
So we head to Chicopee to talk with someone who knows about the system of SNAP way better than we do to get more in depth on how the partial distribution will affect those here in the 4 counties. We are in Chicopee at the Food Bank of Western Massachusetts with the Executive Director of the Food Bank of Western Massachusetts, Andrew Morehouse. You're going to hear a lot about the Food Bank in the next couple of weeks because the March for the Food Bank is happening Monday and Tuesday, November 24th and 25th.
And Saturday, November 22nd, if you're in the Berkshires.
A mini march in Pittsfield for the first time ever, which is something we've wanted to accomplish after many years of doing this Food Bank March. We'll talk more about what the march means, what support of the Food Bank means, and the role of the Food Bank in ending hunger in the 4 counties of Western Mass on Hunger Awareness Week, which is the week leading up to the march. But right now, everybody is thinking about hunger in a way that is, I think, somewhat hopeful, despite the hopelessness. SNAP, for the first time ever in the history of the program, did not go out as planned at the first of the month in November. Andrew Morehouse, talk about SNAP and its importance in the overall puzzle of trying to end hunger in America.
Sure. So we'll start from the beginning, and that is, what is SNAP, right? SNAP is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It's a federal anti-hunger program that's been in existence since, I think, at various stages between a pilot and so on until it became a full-fledged program since like the 1930s. So it's been around a long, long, long time. Right now, there are 42 million people who rely on SNAP benefits every month for the period of time that they're receiving those benefits to put food on the table. We're talking about mainly children, elders, people with disabilities, and working families who are bound to work requirements, very strict work requirements or volunteer requirements in order to receive benefits. We're not talking about a handout here, folks.
Break it down, the kind of percentages of who's on SNAP. We say 42 million people.
Yeah.
It's not 42 million people sitting on their couch playing video games and just getting a debit card from the government. That is not the reality.
Yeah, 75% of individuals who receive SNAP benefits are children, elders, or people with disabilities. These are folks who cannot work. How are they going to put food on their tables? Do we not have a compact, a commitment to ensuring that everyone has some basic level of sustenance in our country, without which, what does that say about us as a country? That's always been, since the 1960s, when this became a full-fledged program, our compact with the American public. On top of that, about 50% of people are working at some level, and they're required to, because the SNAP program requires people who are able to work. And if they can't work, they must volunteer. And this is a program, a requirement that's been in existence since the 1990s, that was passed under the Clinton administration, a Democratic president. It's critical that we uphold that commitment to every citizen who needs it in this country. The average benefit is about $183 a month. We're talking about supplemental nutrition assistance. Folks who receive that benefit have other sources of funding, and this is designed to supplement their income, when in fact, even that doesn't cut it. By the end of the month, more often than not, people who receive SNAP benefits run out of their benefits. And when that occurs, they turn to the food pantry and meal site in their community to receive additional food assistance. And most, if not all, of the food pantries, well, all of the food pantries, certainly here in Western Massachusetts, receive most of their food from the Food Bank of Western Massachusetts. We're at a point, an inflection point right now, where, as you said, those SNAP benefits didn't go out the first of the month. The USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture, announced November 3rd that it will release 50% of the SNAP benefits that are due to individuals across the country by law. And two court orders require them to make good on their obligation to citizens across this country.
Is the 50% part of that ruling, or that is an arbitrary decision as far as you know?
No, our understanding is the decision is that they need to release 100% of them. The question is...
So they're in violation of these court orders then?
That is my understanding of it. And the question, and of course that's being disputed, but that being said, the Trump administration, through the U.S. Department of Agriculture, has confirmed that they will release 50% of the SNAP benefits for the month of November, which is slightly less than half of the SNAP contingency fund that is available by virtue of Congress's appropriation of it. So the question is, what are people going to do with only 50% of their SNAP benefits when typically they run out by the end of the month? They will not be able to rely on the local food pantry or meal site to feed themselves for the remainder of the month because, quite frankly, we were not designed to replace SNAP benefits. For every meal that food banks provide food to pantries and meal sites in our network, the SNAP program provides 9 meals. So there's no way that we could replace the impact of SNAP benefits. So we are calling upon the Massachusetts legislature and Governor Healy to dig into the rainy day fund to complement the 50% of funding that the USDA is going to issue in the coming days, we don't know exactly when, to make good on the 100% benefits that individuals and households need to be able to put food on their table for the entire month. The problem is, as a good friend of mine said recently, is that people don't eat retroactively.
Right.
They need food now.
So everything that should have gone out on Saturday, they could have been waiting, literally hungry on Saturday, waiting for those SNAP benefits to kick in, and now it's midweek and still nothing. And then when they get something, it's only going to be 50% of what they were hoping for.
That's right, and we knew this was going to happen, and so we started preparing for this several weeks ago, about a month ago actually. And when I say we, the Food Bank of Western Massachusetts, we've been stocking up on food and ordering more food in anticipation of this run on the bank, so to speak,
Wow,
right?
yes.
The food bank.
Yeah.
And we know that that occurs mainly through our wide network of food assistance, food pantries and meal sites across the 4 counties of Western Massachusetts, 199 food pantry and meal sites strong. We've already been hearing from them ordering more food because they're starting to receive more and more individuals seeking food assistance. And our phones have been off the hook, our emails, people confused, people scared, people worried, people angry. What are we going to do? And we are trying to keep up with it.
I feel like at the core of this is trying to look at what happens to an institution like yours when we move from assistive infrastructure to a pure charity model, which this administration is definitely trying to move everybody towards. What are some of the impacts that you're projecting if that ends up continuing to be the case?
Because the future of SNAP is also in jeopardy when it comes to the budget.
191,000 individuals receive SNAP benefits in Western Massachusetts alone. That translates into $35 million every month through the SNAP program being invested in household individuals here in Western Massachusetts who in turn spend that money in the local economy at food retailers and at farmers markets and the like.
And I think that's an important piece that people forget too. Not only is it making sure people have enough to eat, it goes right into the local economy.
Absolutely. Businesses rely on this, farmers rely on this source of revenue to employ people who in turn spend their incomes, and that trickles through the economy. And we know that $35 million translates into about $54 million of economic activity through this ripple effect. And that will hit our economy hard to the extent that those funds don't come through. So we know that about 50% is coming through, so that's $17.5 million. That translates into about $25 million of economic activity. activity. And if we don't get the second infusion of that, either from the federal government or the state government, that's a loss of $25 million in economic activity and another $17.5 million in SNAP benefits to people who rely on them. That's going to hurt our local economy here in Western Massachusetts and by extension across the Commonwealth and across the country. This is the reality. What does this mean down the road? Well, we know that we have a period of time before the beautiful, bad bill, whatever you want to call it, kicks in terms of SNAP benefits. Those changes won't come into effect until after next year's congressional elections. Those changes would have an even more dire consequence for people who receive SNAP benefits and for our economy and for the role of the state government. But turning to the now and the present, we're asking Governor Healy and our legislature here in the state of Massachusetts to make up the difference, the remaining 50% of SNAP benefits for this month, so that people have food on their table throughout the whole month. We're talking about $17.5 million in Western Massachusetts and about $110 million for the entire Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Does the state have that money to do that? And how many times can the state step in where the federal government has pulled money away from lots of programs that people care about?
Exactly. $110 million to make up for the 50% of lost SNAP benefits for the month of November equals 2% of the rainy day fund. And I should say 2% of the discretionary rainy day fund. And when I say that, I speak to only $5 billion of the $8 billion. And I say that because Governor Healy, a week or so ago, said that $3 billion of that rainy day fund is already committed for to make up for the loss of $3 billion of federal funds that was clawed back or is not forthcoming. 2% or $110 million in SNAP benefits is what we're asking for from the rainy day fund and no more, because our hope is and our expectation is the federal government will be back in business and SNAP benefits will begin flowing again in the month of December.
More about how the reduced SNAP distribution will affect the operations of the Food Bank of Western Mass with Executive Director Andrew Morehouse, including how those benefits can key into the cliff effect.
After which, we'll talk to Kevin Gibeau about music, oysters, Bruce Lee, and community, all of which come together at Hutke's at the Nook in Westfield.
And learn about a way that encyclopedias in the 70s learned to keep each other honest with word nerd Emily Brewster.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Hashi Pottery in 50 Arrow Gallery at Eastworks. Japanese-inspired ceramics and textiles, where every piece is handmade in the Pioneer Valley for home, ritual, or someone dear. HashiPottery.com.
Speaking with Andrew Morehouse, Executive Director of the Food Bank of Western Mass, I mentioned that there were some hopeful bits about this government shutdown and the response to SNAP not going out in a timely fashion. I think people really realized the emergency that this creates. Even people who hadn't previously been supportive of any programs like this, a la Senator Rand Paul, saying the bigger question is we need to be asking why there are 42 million people using SNAP in the first place. That is a great question. I mean, we mentioned that 75% of those people are unable to work. And assumedly, we don't want the elderly and children to starve. But the 25% of the other folks are essentially the working poor, where we don't have income, we don't have a salary, we don't have an hourly rate that will allow you to pay for all of those bills. Are you, as the executive director of the food bank, seeing any movement across the aisle politically about maybe this is a real problem? I felt like when the pandemic hit, it was a similar situation. People realized all of a sudden, I'm one paycheck away from needing food assistance, and some changes were made. There was the childhood tax credit that came through in that time frame that essentially halved childhood poverty with the stroke of a pen. Any hopeful elements you're seeing out of this politically?
Well, I always turn back to values. A budget is simply a representation of values. And I do believe that in this country, there can be shared values on both sides of the aisle. And it really goes back to, the basics. We believe at the food bank that access to food is a right. And if we believe in the importance of strong families and strong communities, which I think is a bipartisan issue, we need to ask ourselves, how do we ensure that? How do we ensure strong families and strong communities across the country? And one way of doing that is ensuring that we invest in them. And the way to do that is not to rely exclusively on the private market, because the way the private market works, it is designed to concentrate income where private entities can optimize or maximize their profit. We know throughout history that that doesn't always work. The market and the economy fails. And two of the reasons why that happens is because that stimulates the accumulation of wealth in very profitable businesses and in sectors of the economy and in sectors of our populace that lead to the concentration of wealth that actually destabilizes our economy. That's why historically our country goes through periods of booms and busts. That's well understood by economists. And for that reason, there's a role for government to play to redistribute wealth to communities and to households that aren't the recipients of that generation and accumulation of wealth. And that stimulates the economy in a more equitable way across our country so that everyone benefits. But we won't have sustainable economies at the local level and families that can support themselves if they don't have the means to do that. And too often, our economy relies on the role of private businesses to ensure that people have health care and incomes. And we can't expect small businesses to be able to do that. That's why we have a tax code that is proportional and redistributes income so that the wealth of the country is being shared in communities and in families that otherwise don't benefit it. We believe that one of the causes of hunger is reduced to income, community, and health-related factors. And when communities and families don't have adequate income, oftentimes by virtue of their zip code and the lack of investment in them and the health-related consequences associated with that, this is why we have so many people who rely on public benefits. And there are smarter ways to go about it. And Republicans and Democrats seem to understand what some of those are. And they are things like the child care tax credit. They are things like incentives to support families who rely on public benefits now to assist them to become employed when they can, so that they can sustain themselves. And that doesn't happen overnight. And so one of the initiatives that we've been very supportive of locally and across the Commonwealth is a pilot initiative called the Bridgeway to Prosperities, where we, through a wide collaborative and support and investment from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, are supporting families who are receiving public assistance like SNAP benefits, but are no longer eligible as they acquire a better paying job or a new job. And therefore, they need a little bit of assistance to make this transition to employment that they can support themselves on. So there are lots of creative ways that the public sector, state and federal government, can come together in smart ways to support families to make that transition so that they no longer need public benefits. And the Bridge to Prosperity is one example here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and in other states across the country to lead the way, to demonstrate to the federal government that these are ways that Republicans and Democrats can agree that if we invest in communities, we can achieve the same desired outcome.
Ways to avoid the cliff effect, which I don't think people who are critical of SNAP necessarily understand. Lay people who are critical of the program will often say, well, just go out and get another job. But if you get another job, suddenly you don't get your benefits anymore. That entire job now goes to the things that you were able to afford while having assistance.
Yeah, what's interesting is the cliff effect is a perfect example of what Republicans and Democrats both agree, this notion of a vicious cycle of poverty. But the solutions to the cliff effect are very different. The Republicans believe that the way to resolve the cliff effect is to add additional work requirements to people who receive SNAP benefits. Whereas Democrats would say, what are ways that we can incentivize households and support them to bridge a reliance on public benefits in that transition to employment when and where you can. So we have to find ways that we can come to agreement.
Speaking with Andrew Morehouse, Executive Director of the Food Bank of Western Mass here in Chicopee. We've been talking a lot about SNAP and hearing a lot about SNAP and how benefits failed to go out on November 1st and how we are anticipating that they will go out sometime in November at 50%. And you mentioned that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in its rainy day fund is going to allocate 2% of that fund, $110 million.
We're hoping that.
Maybe to fill that gap. The Commonwealth has a great program that we talk about incessantly on our show called HIP, the Healthy Incentives Program, that dovetails with SNAP, where people are essentially rebated when they spend their SNAP benefits at a farmer's market or a market that has fresh, healthy vegetables available to them. Will the HIP program be used to implement that gap filling that the Commonwealth is trying to do, or will there be another means, if this goes through in the way that the food bank is hoping for, that the Commonwealth will get this supplemental money to the folks who rely on SNAP in Massachusetts?
The HIP program is reliant on the bounty of local farmers across Massachusetts, and we know that we're approaching the end of the harvest season. So I can't imagine that individuals who receive SNAP benefits will be able to rely much on the HIP program. And in fact, we know a very small percentage of SNAP recipients actually access the HIP program. So we really do need the legislature and the governor to release funds from the rainy day fund.
And we need to do a better job of educating people of the availability of HIP for SNAP recipients in Massachusetts, because it really is a great program.
It's a great program, and it's a great investment in our local farmers, particularly here in the Connecticut River Valley.
And in the overall health of people who are relying on SNAP.
Although I will say that my feeds, like the last 2 weeks, have been literally full of people going, look, if you have SNAP and these benefits are running out, if you leave at least $1 in your account, you have access to your HIP for the next month.
Which is great, and I've seen a lot of that too.
But the fact of the matter is, most people who receive SNAP benefits are going to go to a supermarket or a food retailer in their neighborhood or close to their neighborhood to get food.
Andrew Morehouse is the Executive Director of the Food Bank of Western Mass. We're going to follow the story about what's happening with SNAP across the nation and here in the Commonwealth until we find out, all of us, how this is going to shake down with the government shutdown. But coming up in just a couple weeks, the March for the Food Bank 16, where Andrew Morehouse will be there walking the entire 43 miles from Springfield to Greenfield over 2 days, with an additional 3 miles in Pittsfield, a mini march on the Saturday before the Monday and Tuesday, November 24th and 25th. And we will hear later about the impacts of the community rallying around the food bank and what that means in our effort to try to end hunger in our area.
Indeed. I'll be marching for as many years as you keep marching, my friend.
And I'll keep doing it at least as many years as McGovern does it, at least, because, you know, he's a little longer in the tooth than I am. So if he keeps doing it, I feel like I got to keep it.
Yes, it sounds like a shared co-responsibility, guilt.
Most interesting fundraising game of chicken I've ever seen.
It's actually for chicken for people, so that's good.
I didn't think you'd hit both songs.
Oh, yeah. This is the iconic German hip-hop adjacent group.
They're
Snap.
house. They're firmly house and
but
electronica.
And they worked with a lot of rappers in the 90s.
Yes. We'll hear more from Executive Director Andrew Morehouse of the Food Bank of Western Mass as we get ever closer to the March for the Food Bank later this month. But check their site for all the programs they have going on all of the time.
And we'll hear more from the German house music band Snap as this crisis unfolds. We'll visit the amazing community gathering time capsule that is Hutke's at the Nook in Westfield after we hear about a term that forced reference materials to maintain integrity with a question from NEPM's own Dave Sears with word nerd Emily Brewster next.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Real Pickles, a worker-owned cooperative in Greenfield producing organic fermented vegetables sourced from Northeast farms. More information at realpickles.com.
Time for another Word Nerd segment with Emily Brewster, resident wordster from Merriam Webster down the street, who is sometimes our office coworker if she doesn't feel like working at Merriam Webster and comes here to the station, at which point everyone is delighted. I guess especially Dave Sears, who runs Morning Edition locally here for us at any PM.
Real Pickles, a worker-owned cooperative in Greenfield.
Everyone's delighted except for Nirvani Williams.
Who never is here when you're here and really wants to meet you. And I think believes that you're always here with us, but never when she's here. At any rate, there was a question from our very own Dave Sears that said, a question for Emily that she might not be at liberty to answer. Does the Merriam Webster dictionary contain decoy mountweazels? And I forwarded this to you, and I said, I don't even know what this means, and I almost don't even want to know. And you replied, oh, you actually do, but should refrain. We'll address it next week. Well, next week has come, Emily Brewster, and I guess we are talking about decoy mountain weasels.
Yeah, yes, not mountain weasels, but just mountweazels.
Mountweazels.
Yes. And you still don't know what they are.
I did not cheat. I did not cheat.
No.
Because the place we're going to start is with the word's etymology. Not the word decoy. We're just focusing on the mountweazel because the decoy part isn't actually a necessary part of understanding this term.
Is it from the Department of Redundancy Department?
Sort of, yes.
Okay.
I'm going to read you a small entry from the 1975 edition of the New Columbia Encyclopedia. Okay, here we go. Mountweazel, Lillian, Virginia, 1942 to 1973. American photographer, born Bangs, Ohio. Turning from fountain design to photography in 1963, Mountweazel produced her celebrated portraits of the Sierra Miwok in 1964. She was awarded government grants to make a series of photo essays of unusual subject matter, including New York City buses, the cemeteries of Paris, and rural American mailboxes. The last group was exhibited extensively abroad and published as Flags Up, 1972. Mountweazel died at 31 in an explosion while on assignment for Combustibles magazine.
This all sounds fake.
Exactly. Yes.
I will admit that the decoy mountweazels was a little bit of a hint that maybe what we were to expect here was going to be untrue.
This is where the word mountweazel comes from. There never was any Lillian, Virginia mountweazel. There apparently is a Bangs, Ohio.
There is a Bangs, Ohio, yes.
Yes. But her photo essays featuring rural American mailboxes called Flags Up never existed.
Great name for a book about rural American mailboxes, though.
I mean, it sounds like a joke from The Simpsons is what it sounds like.
Totally. It's a perfectly cromulent joke.
Now, the story is that the New Columbia Encyclopedia staff members, somebody in the staff anyway, the story is that they put this entry into their encyclopedia so that they would be able to catch anyone who plagiarized any other reference work publishers who chose also, if they saw an entry for Lillian, Virginia Mountweazel in Encyclopedia Britannica, which they did not, it would mean that it had been just stolen from them.
We should fully disclose Encyclopedia Britannica, the parent company of Merriam Webster.
Yes.
So you didn't want to throw your parent company under the bus. Good for you, Encyclopedia Britannica, for not plagiarizing the Mountweazel.
We did not.
Plagiarizing Mountweazel is like the best insult ever. Someone needs to use this somewhere.
Now, people ask us at Merriam Webster if we include mountweazels, and I think this is what Dave Sears was really getting at. Would I be at liberty to talk about the fact that we do include them if we did, but we do not. We have never included any kind of mountweazel.
On purpose.
Right. That isn't to say that we didn't once have an entry in our dictionary for a non-existent word for a number of decades.
Can you explain that story, Emily Brewster? Because it is the most fun error that Merriam-Webster has made.
It is. This error occurred in Webster's Second International Dictionary, it's actually the largest book of any kind to be mass produced. Physically, it is just enormous. And this book was published in 1934, as I said, and it included an entry for the word dord, capital D-O-R-D, and it was defined as density. Now, that is not what dord means. Dord actually does not mean density. There had been an error in the production of the book. Somebody had written on one of these little 3x5 slips of paper, which we no longer use, but we used even into my time at Merriam Webster, had written capital D, lowercase d. And that was an abbreviation for density. Capital D can mean density and lowercase d can mean density. But whoever was typing up from this little slip of paper read it all as a single word and said, oh, no, it's not an abbreviation. It's a noun, density.
It was their
And
own.
somehow,
It was their own Dord that led them to this decision.
They may have been overtired and underpaid. That's what I suspect. Yes. So, yeah, and the Dord somehow made it through the whole process. I don't think, I'm actually very confident that could not happen at this point. I think they were under tremendous pressure when that dictionary was being published. And that does happen. That kind of deadline pressure can make things feel rushed.
It's not like the dictionary needs to be out tomorrow morning with election results. But
it's true. It's true. But we do have publication deadlines, and we want something to be on bookshelves by date X or whatever. So things can get a little tight at the end.
Khalees did see an awesome misprint, adored of its own, or yes, from, I think it was the New York Post, in regards to the elections this week.
Nearly 1 million New Yorkers ready to flee New York City if Mamdani becomes mayor, possibly igniting largest exodus in history.
Not a mountweazel, more of a Dord.
Yeah, and you know what? Let's bring back the editors. Let's bring back the proofreaders, please.
Yes.
Now, there is a story of a famous dictionary mountweazel, because the one that I've talked about so far, the original mountweazel, was for an encyclopedia.
Mm-hmm.
But so the story goes, the new Oxford American Dictionary, a full-size dictionary like Merriam Webster's Collegiate Dictionary, published by Oxford University Press. When that dictionary came out, it had an entry for a mountweazel. It was esquivalience. Esquivalience, defined as something like the willful avoidance of one's duties or official responsibilities.
Like how I feel when I listen to Esquivel.
Now, my colleague, Ammon Shea, he worked at Oxford for a time, and it is widely described as a mountweazel that they put in on purpose. But what he heard, and this is just from being on the inside, is that it was actually a practical joke that the editors were playing on each other, and then somebody forgot to actually take it out. And then when they were called on it, they said, oh yeah, it's a mountweazel. We just put it in to catch anybody who entered it.
That makes the decoy mountweazel even more important in Dave Sears' question, because it is the idea that like a decoy duck is there so you can catch a real duck.
Right.
So decoy not necessarily meaning just false, but like we're trying to catch you. Catch you in the act.
Yes, that is true. Yeah, that is key to what a mountweazel is. An error is not a mountweazel. It has to be something that is used to catch people, to stop horrific plagiarism that runs rampant through all reference publishing.
It is a lure.
When people used to ask me what kind of music my band played, I always would say we play Velp, and they'd be like, "Oh, what's that?" I'd say it's sort of ambient funkabilica, which was just all nonsense.
I hate everything about that sentence.
It was my way of not having to answer the question using a series of, I guess, mountweazels, or at least Dords, things that I was intentionally putting out there.
I mean, you can equally confuse them by telling them what your band actually sounds like I do.
Yeah, I don't have time for that.
Are you familiar with the late 90s band Number Girl out of Fukuoka? We sound kind of like them.
I also used to love to roll down my window, and my children now do this too. And when people that we know are on the side of the road, we yell something that sounds like it's urgent and English, but is not. And what we always yell is, "Don't forget to spake the faldine," which sounds like, what? What am I not supposed to forget to do? Spake the faldine, and then it's hilarity ensues. I've been doing that since the 90s. So when did this mountweazel thing originally in the encyclopedia was when?
That was, I think, 75, the 75.
1975?
Encyclopedia. Yes, 1975.
Okay. How much plagiarism was there in encyclopedias to warrant this?
I know more about dictionary plagiarism than I know about encyclopedia plagiarism.
Fair.
Historically, the accusations are constantly flying, and some of them are founded on a lot and some of them are not. Certainly the earliest dictionaries, much of the text of the early dictionaries was copied from whoever had done a dictionary before, they would at least copy all the head words and then maybe change some of the definitions, or maybe not, or maybe they would just reorganize them because they weren't originally all alphabetical. But people were, still spending years on it, but there was still some duplicating, some outright theft and plagiarism going on for sure. It happens less often now than it used to.
It's probably a lot easier to check now, too.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Here's the question, Emily Brewster. Is adored still in Merriam Webster's dictionary now that you found out that it was adored that you had made, which I'm going to now use as a mistake? I think it's a good word for mistake.
I like it.
Is adored still in Merriam Webster's dictionary?
Oh, no. Absolutely not.
Is mountweazel in Merriam Webster's dictionary?
It is not.
Oh.
And the reason it's not is just that, not many people know the word or talk about the word. It's one of the words that we've got, like it's in a list where we're like, okay, we're still looking after this word. But I think we need more people to talk about it. So it's really great that Dave Sears has brought this to our attention. So the listeners who are interested in seeing mountweazel become fully established in the English language in such a way that Merriam-Webster will enter it in our dictionaries need to just start talking a lot more about mountweazels.
If you're listening, use it in published and edited text, or heck, even just put it on the internet a lot.
And if you're wondering, it's a Z in the third syllable.
mountweazel. Mountweazel.
Yeah.
I'm going to change my name to Monty Bell Mountweazel.
Okay. I'm just imagining you showing up dressed as a weasel and people going, "What are you?" And I'm like, "I'm Monty Weasel."
A bit dressed like like Pauly Shore, the Mountweazel.
Oh,
The
my gosh.
Pauly Shore comes up all too often in this segment in particular.
You're the one who brings him
Yeah,
up.
I don't think you can blame either of us.
I think you're right. I was obsessed with Totally Pauly on MTV, again, back in the 90s when I was yelling, "Don't forget to speak the fall dine" out of the car.
Totally Pauly.
Even if you are not a member of the NEPM staff, like Dave Sears is from our version of Morning Edition here,
Battery storage and clean energy solutions.
you can ask the Word Nerd a question as well if you send us an email, like Dave Sears did at thefab413@nepm.org. Thank you, Emily Brewster.
Thank you, Monty Belmonte. Thank you, Khalees Smith.
Always a pleasure.
It's Monty Bell Mountweazel. And now, one of the coolest spots in Western Mass as we dig into the history of Hutke's at the Nook with co-owner Kevin Gibo.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Comfort Bagel, scratch-made artisan sourdough bagels, spreads, and sandwiches for breakfast or lunch on Main Street in Westfield and at their new location in Holyoke at 92 Race Street. ComfortBagel.com. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Eastside Grill, celebrating 40 years in downtown Northampton, serving steaks, seafood, and American cuisine to the Pioneer Valley and beyond. Open Wednesday through Monday. EastSideGrill.com.
How do you correctly say the name of your establishment?
Hutke's.
Hutke's.
Yeah. It's technically Hutke's at the Nook. So a lot of the times I get lazy and I go, it's Hutke's, but just Google the Nook. You'll find it. It's fine.
We're talking with Kevin Gibo, who is the owner of Hutke's at the Nook. It's in Westfield.
Yes.
What, first of all, is the Nook?
So the Nook has actually been a bar since the early 40s. I rent it from the family that's owned it since then. My landlord, Vinny, his dad ran it until I think the 70s, and Vinny ran it until we opened it.
Uh-huh.
So
Which was when?
2018. So I'm only the third person that's really ever had the keys. You know what I mean?
Khalees, you love this place.
I love this place.
That's why we're having this conversation. I've never had the opportunity to go yet, but I'm excited to go now that Khalees comes back so frequently and says how great it is.
It is a not-so-hidden gem. And apologies to everyone we destroyed at Trivia on Tuesday.
And
I'm not there Tuesday night, so I'm always like, what's up? It's the only night I'm not there that we're open, so.
Well,
glad to hear that you're partaking in our activities.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Before we delve into the name Hutke's, tell us a little more about like some of the lore of a bar that's been going on for 80-something years.
It's had a lot of phases. I mean, we have a really broad age range of people that come in, so there's a lot of people that come in that have been coming to this bar since like the 50s or 60s, and what they say about what it was, and then somebody who hung out there in the 80s, wildly different things. And then the last phase before we took it over kind of had like a biker divey thing, you know? And we've met a lot of those dudes. Those dudes are great too. Like, no disrespect to a club. I have no problem with any of that stuff. They seem like nice guys to me. It was a bit of an inmates running the asylum scenario. I think Vinny was nearing retirement age and they kind of maybe had the run of the place because there is like lore of people pulling guns on people and stuff like that. All unsubstantiated. I had been in and out of the place a number of times because there off and on had been a couple people that would book like punk and hardcore shows there. So that was my first experience going there. Yeah, you hear people talk about that people would pee in this potted plant if the bathroom line was too long. I guess there was a barber chair installed as like one of the chairs at the head of one of the tables.
Wow.
Like when they decommissioned the place to make room for us, they actually sold the barber chair to a guy in Albany that got it reconditioned, and it's like being used every day in like a vintage barbershop.
Well, it's interesting because you also have a flea market there, which we want to get to too, but we need to continue to peel back the layers of the onion of this name. We're talking with Kevin Gibo of Hutke's at the Nook.
Yeah.
Because the inside of that place is a many-decaded time capsule.
Yes. Everybody did their best to make whatever changes needed to be made blend in, but a lot of the repairs you could tell were just done by a dude who was at the bar who happened to be there when they started talking about, hey, we got to redo the trim on this. And the guy was, I'll do it. You know what I mean? When we were taking this place apart, we would be like moving, and we didn't really change that much, to be clear. There was just some stuff that was like duct taped together that we needed to rebuild a bench. But when you start digging into this stuff, it's like 9 different types of screws. There's like a flat head, there's a Phillips head. Some are 3 inches long.
Like my
One
house.
isn't even going all the way through. It's like crazy the like amount of funny little like weird quirky things. There's just pieces of wood covering a hole and things and stuff. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
There's a certain type of person who comes in, they're just like, what is this dump? And then there's some people who come in and they're like, I love this place. It's so cute. It's so classy. People just like it for a lot of different reasons. To some people, we're a restaurant. To some people, we're the dive bar. To some people, we're a venue.
That sounds like the perfect match of everything for me.
But
Those
the
are 3
space-
things that I love so much.
And the space is kind of like that, too. It's got this tiny little kitchen. It's got this really long, cool, iconic bar that's been the same bar full of cigarette and cigar burns and stuff since the 40s. And then the venue in the back probably is the room that we've changed the most because it was a private pool hall and it had installed benches all the way around the room and it ate up a lot of space. Post-COVID, we really wanted to embrace being a venue a lot more.
And frankly, we're not discounting this restaurant because your menu punches way above its weight. Like somewhere in the spring, I was scrolling through your post and you were posting about having cream of morel soup. What bar has morels on its menu, even as a special or a standard or anything?
So this is being the kind of space that it is, it's just it's a wild crossroads in the valley. You know, I don't want to call myself a chef. I'm not properly trained, but I run the kitchen. I make the food. I've been a food enthusiast for a long time. I've worked in the restaurant industry for a while. So I got to keep it interesting for myself. So we have our standard stuff, and then I have the stuff that I kind of play around with for fun. That being one of them. But what's cool is I get dudes who come in. This guy's a stand-up comedian who does the open mic on Thursdays, and then Wednesday he walks in with a bag of ramps or a bag of morels. Like, this is the same guys. You know what I mean? So it's cool. Customers just come in. They give us records. Hey, I grew all these. Do you want them? I'm like,
Here are some of the things on this dive bar restaurant's menu list. Calabrian chili, marinated manchego cheese, salumi, not salami, which is there is a very...
Yes.
salumi is plural.
You could read a huge book about all of the differences between those things. But just that subtle touch right there, white anchovies and guindillas piparas. I don't even know what that is.
It's a pickled hot pepper from the north of Spain.
I can't wait to try that. I love
That
anchovies.
dish has changed a little bit, though. The white anchovies, I'm now serving it with a marinated cured olive pate that really saw it in a little book about the pinchos.
That is amazing.
Yeah, it's very good.
Okay, now the real question
Yeah,
here.
hit me.
Hutke's at the Nook.
Yeah.
It's like Ruth's Chris Steakhouse.
It is
Why the heck did you call it that?
There's a very... All right, so the Nook is an iconic space. It's been there for so long. If you've ever driven through Westfield on Route 20, you turn the corner and you see that long, skinny, tall building with the fluorescent around it if it's nighttime. It stands out so much that people have driven by it a million times and not noticed it. I don't really know how that happens, but people tell me this all the time. We wanted to maintain that legacy of that space. It's been there almost 100 years at this point.
Yeah.
So we were like, we need to somehow amend it or add to it. And it's really as simple as when I was a kid, there was a club in Providence, Rhode Island called Lupo's.
Lupo's Heartbreak Hotel.
Yeah, Lupo's Heartbreak
I
Hotel.
saw the white stripes there. I saw so many amazing bands there before they were big.
Yeah, saw this band, The Weaker Thans, that I love a lot.
I love The
yeah,
Weaker
yeah,
Thans.
yeah.
It's one of my favorite bands of all time. Remember they moved
Yes.
to be attached to the Strand, and
Right.
it became Lupo's at the Strand.
Yeah.
Literally, I just stole that idea. I was like, oh yeah, all right, well, it's Hutkey's at the Nook, because it made sense for them.
But Lupo's was a thing, and the Strand was a thing. What is a Hutkey's?
Hutkey,
let's spell it. It's Hutghi.
Yes. I believe
Which
it's
I've been
Hungarian, but some of the letters that, they might not even be around anymore.
Oh.
Might be one of those names it uses.
So where did you come up with this name?
It's the restaurant's named after a family friend of my father's from when I was a young man.
I heard it was named after a cookie.
All right, I'll ask Hutkey. We'll find out. We can get to the bottom of it. It's
interesting.
We'll figure it
The
out.
mystery continues, and
Yeah.
Hutkey's at the Nook.
Yeah, you have to come find out for yourself, if you've never been.
You can only experience the Hutkey. It's like umami.
Sometimes people go, what's Hutkey's? And I said, it's everything that's not nailed down. Because if you're listening, you wouldn't know, but there's literally probably 1,000 decorations.
There it is. It's so cool. And they're not like tchotchkes. There's paintings and pictures, and I think you have a Velvet Elvis.
I have a Velvet Elvis. I also
I'm going to love this place. I
I'm
have
going
one
to
on
take
my
it up
porch.
one more notch. I have a Velvet Bruce Lee.
Yes.
That's about 3 feet tall.
And I do have an Elvis on Black Velvet, but I don't have a Bruce Lee on Black Velvet, so I'm going to have to come visit yours at Hutkey's at the Nook.
I got it at a flea market for $40.
I'll give you $50 for it. No.
We'll see. We'll see.
But the antiques and flea markets are part of the ethos
thing.
of it.
Yeah.
And the people that own the rights to Antiques Roadshow, the Farrell family, are also from Westfield and are not strangers to your flea market at Hutkey's at the Nook.
They have been, and they have said, Kevin, your decorations are cool. They gave me the thumbs up on the decor.
Hell yeah.
It's not going to be worth a lot at auction necessarily, but
10 to 1.
Bruce Lee is actually only worth $20 at auction.
The value at auction is not just because of appraisal; it is definitely because of nostalgia and your connection to it. So if people have,
I have
things.
sold things. People have been like, "Would you sell me this?" And I'm like, "What would you give me for it?" And they're like, "X," and I'm like, "Yes."
Everything that's not nailed down is Hutkey's.
Totally. There's probably 10 objects that I wouldn't get rid of.
But having these quirky type events and musical events is all part of it. So
and
why
comedy?
Yeah,
And
comedy.
the record collection, people are like, people love to every once in a while, somebody will be like, "Can I go behind the bar and look at your records?" I'm like, "Yeah, totally."
I love it. If you've experienced Kevin on this show and I'm going to say lovingly quirky nature, you also do really fun Facebook videos about what's coming up too.
Oh yeah, every Tuesday I post a video about what's coming up. For a while I was trying to come up with a weird angle, do funny stuff. I was doing video editing, I'm in the woods, all that, but I really ran out of ideas pretty quickly. So now I just rely on my own charm, instead of Hollywood trickery.
I love it.
How long before you took over the space was music happening at the Nook?
I mean, in the 90s, there was bands this dude, Mark Dargy, he sang for this band Wishful Thinking, and they was in a bunch of other bands, spoke a bunch of stuff. He was a bartender for a long time, so he would just let bands play there, but they didn't play in the back because there was a huge pool table back there. They actually that booth table in the front, they just moved the booth and put the drum set there. So, and then they would put a single PA speaker just sitting on the bar. The same old timers would just be sitting there they'd be relocated down 5 more feet, I guess, away from the PA speaker. But there would be all these old Western Mass hardcore bands just playing the crazy, aggressive, loud, fast music. And these dudes were just kind of I don't know, whatever. These guys are weird. And they're just sitting there cranking Bud Light, poured through the gnarliest tap system you've ever seen in your entire life,
It can't be gnarlier than the basement.
When we took it apart, no disrespect, they hadn't been using the tap system for a long time by this point in time because they had switched mostly to cans and bottles, but it looked like the tap system was assembled with stuff you would make a elaborate fish tank system out. I'm like, that's not, it's weird little knobs and tubes, and I'm like, none of this is supposed to be down here doing this job, So we rebuilt the whole tap system, ladies and gentlemen. It's brand new.
It's clean now.
It's clean.
Yeah.
Like the rest of the space.
Well, at one point in time, somebody polyurethaned the floor without cleaning it first. So there is vintage
Vintage dirt.
Yeah, there's like weird little confetti from somebody's 30th birthday party, like sealed to the floor. And
I love
stuff.
it. Trapped in amber. You're going to
did
resurrect the DNA of that person's birthday party in Hutchke's Park.
We had a scavenger hunt at one point in time that you could like fill out and you would get something for free, but nobody ever completed it because it was like too obscure and I keep adding new things. And
back.
I could bring it back. Some of them, and to be honest, we didn't even know the actual answer. It was like, how many things have a bird on them? I'm like, I'm not counting. There's like 3,000 items in here. I never even counted. I just told everybody they were wrong every time.
Kevin Gibo from Hutchke's at the Nook.
Thank you.
I have yet to go to this place, and I rarely go to Westfield. I'm going to make special occasion trips to this place. It sounds like it is the most delightful thing.
Me and the other business owners in Westfield would greatly appreciate it. We're not that far, but it is a gauntlet down 10 and 202.
Yeah.
Do not drink and drive in Westfield.
Good advice.
Woo, heavily fortified town.
Bring a DD and they can eat really well and still get real fun mocktails too.
And do not rely on a Uber. Even Ubers don't like coming to Westfield. Because I have been like, I'm going to party tonight. I'm going to Uber home. And then I am calling my wife at 2:30 like, I got a problem.
At least you called.
Yeah.
Kevin, thanks for coming. I know that you, this building meant a lot to you as a kid growing up in Longmeadow. This is where you believed Sesame Street was.
Yes. So, because when I was a kid and I watched PBS, it had the big PBS
GBY.
So in my mind, it was like, well, I keep driving by this building on the way to the Holyoke Mall or whatever. In my 5-6-year-old mind, like this Sesame Street's in that building.
Sesame Street is in this building.
You know? Which it at least flowed through the pipes of this building.
Absolutely.
In some capacity,
Still
you know
does.
what I mean?
Still does. Yay.
Thank you so much for coming and visiting us here in this building.
It's on HBO now.
Well, yeah, they dropped it.
Is it
They dropped it, and then it's going back, and it was always on PBS.
Sesame Street's in a bit of a situation.
Yes, they are.
Aren't we all?
Aren't we are all public media. But I can't wait to come check out your bar.
You got to come hang out.
Thanks.
Absolutely. I'm there every time we're open except on Tuesdays.
When Khalees goes to get dollar oysters.
Exactly.
But
we
I have
hung
to
out
go early to get dollar oysters because last time I got there at 6:30 and they were gone.
Oh, God. It's the keeping track of that, man. Every time I up my order because we ran out too early the next week.
Nobody shows up.
Because everybody's mad we ran out and then they don't go. And I'm like, but what am I supposed to do? Call everybody and go like, I promise? You know, I don't know how to figure it out.
Place the orders in advance.
If anybody has any advice on that, call in.
Kevin Gibo from Hutchke's at the Nook. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you guys.
On the next Fabulous 413, we'll talk to Annika Lopes of Ancestral Bridges about the hat exhibit all over Amherst and its tie into the movie Clueless at Amherst Cinema.
And give us your questions for Congressman McGovern. I'm Khalees Smith.
I'm Monty Belmonte. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.